says write the essay that has a thesis. Look, has a thesis is number 1 up on our rubric. Uses all of the documents. Number 2, it says addresses all the documents and demonstrates understanding in all but one. Look, you have to do all the documents. You have to. In case you misinterpret one, you've addressed all of them. Do you understand? You can misinterpret one, but you have to address all of them. Supports thesis with appropriate evidence from all or all but one. Look, listen to me. All of the documents you need to use to support your thesis. Use every single document, analyze every document, group every document, and at least 2 documents. Let me tell you, in the DBQ you have in front of you, every single document is oozing point of view. And so they intend for the documents to have everybody have point of view, every single document. So they set the bar here on the generic rubric at 2. We have a rule of 3. And so that rule of 3 is what has to carry you through, because we don't know. You see where it says at least 2 documents. They'll set it at 2, and then if everyone does, because it was so easy, if everyone does 5 in the reading, they'll actually set it at 3 in the reading. They can change the rules at the reading. And all of us teachers get upset and we get really angry and we're like, hey, but we didn't teach. But if you teach rule of 3, you'll be okay. You see where that's coming from? And then we group them in 2 or 3 ways depending on the question. You see it says 2 or 3. They can choose to hold you for 2. Or if everyone's doing 3 or 4 because it was that easy, they'll choose to hold you at 3. So if you have your rule of 3, you have 3 groupings, you'll have no problem. You'll hit that minimum bar. And then identifies or explains the need for 1 type of additional document. That's the missing, boys. And you see that on the thing, on the little bullet points here. We've gone through all of that rubric. They give you the rubric. It's just not set up like this or what we're used to, right? They put it in the little bullet points. So as you're writing, you're checking those off and you're making sure that you have hit every part of that core rubric. Now to get over to the expanded core, we see that you have to, if you have a really good thesis, really good analysis, more points of view in most or all, if you use the documents persuasively as evidence, if you group the documents in additional ways, if you compare them, if you say, look, document 2 was a change from, or document 8 is a change from document 2, and let's look at the 2 of them and actually compare them and really go into that, that's really, really good analysis, and that's going to jump you up. There is no reason why when you walk out of this exam that you don't get a 9 on this DBQ. 9s, that's... All right, so let's look at this question. What's it asking you to do? Analyze the factors that shape the modern Olympics. So analyze factors that shaped modern Olympics. Does it say anything about the modern Olympics causing anything? No. That's the inverse of this question, and let me tell you that when we read this question at the reading, students actually turned this question around and said, hey, the Olympics caused this to happen. What's the question asking you to do? What shaped the Olympics? So what caused those Olympic games? So I want you to write watch for inverse. And when you're watching for inverse, it's so that question does not say the Olympics caused. And what will happen is you'll catch yourself doing that. You'll see the document and you'll turn it around and you'll say, hey, look, the advertising caused the Olympics to be here, or the Olympics caused this to happen. So you have to watch that inverse. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so we'll watch that as we move around these docs. The historical document, the historical background says the Olympic Games were athletic competitions held in Greece approximately every 4 years from 1776 or I'm sorry, 776 BCE to 393 CE. So this was in modern Greece, or I'm sorry, ancient Greece, until the fall. It says, after several years of planning, the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896. So that's your background. The Olympics hasn't been held every 4 years for 2,000 years, that there was a break in between it. And so now we have a revival of Olympics in 1896 into that modern period. We don't have to use any of that information about the ancient Greeks at all. Has nothing to do. 1892, what did the background information say?
It started in 1896.
Okay, so he's the founder of it. He's trying to get people to promote it, right? So that's the purpose of this, right? Let's go ahead and write purpose. I'm going to say, to influence nations to see need for international competition. Sorry. Influence nations to see need for international competition. So if we see this disappearance of war, and he's saying that, you know, those who are called utopians, this perfect world, and he goes on to that disappearance of war is peace. And then he says that others are speak of reduction of the chances of war. I do not see that as utopian. He's right. He says, through the Olympics, like here, our battlefield is on playing surface.
So does that say instead of like using violence and like whatnot, you can just like bring out the competitive nature of people and like bring a positive influence to it instead of just killing?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's show our superiority nation-wise on our battlefield. We don't have to fight to do this. The true free trade of the future is playing these games. Promote the Olympics to avoid war. Take out your aggressions, take out your beefs against other people, other nations, through these games.
That's pretty smart.
My question to you right now is, who's the author of this?
He's the founder.
The founder, okay?
So of course he's
And, you know, he's Pierre de Coubertin, I don't know how to say it. But his name, he's in France, so let's just assume he's French.
And his name's Pierre.
Pierre sounds pretty.
Sounds pretty French, okay. And so, from what point of view is this guy?
He doesn't want war.
Okay. This is a white guy, right?
It's always the white people.
Okay, right? And then he's a white imperialist. What would they have been fighting over at this point? Power, land, you know, more of, you need to know that slave trade's already over, okay? Resources, absolutely. Raw materials. You know, they've already gone through their Berlin Conference, they've already scrambled up Africa, they've already done all that. But now, is he talking about, hey, let's have these Olympic Games and let's have all the nations of Africa compete in them?
No.
That's not really what he's saying. Do we agree with that? That we're looking here, he's really just talking about hey, little European white people, let's go ahead and have some Olympic Games. Do we agree with that? Okay. And so I want you to look at this, the audience. Our nations, leaders of nations. And you know, leaders of nations that would listen to France. At this point, you know, France still has some influence over in America. France still has, you know, their beefs with Great Britain, but they're saying, hey, look, let's not take that out on each other here. Let's do it on the playing field. Okay, so what was the question we were asked? Features of the modern Olympics. So how are we going to place this? What's the feature?
No war.
Okay, so no war. So the feature that we have here,
Peace, among others.
so we could go political with it, right? Because we're trying to, I mean, we're promoting peace through the games, and so that peace is political. Okay? And then the whole free trade thing, you could actually argue the free trade and then,
Economic.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
because of that free trade statement and saying that, look, this is going to be beneficial to everyone involved. Okay, we're done with Doc 1. Alright, let's look at the source line and see where we can find, because again, I told you that all of these docs, pretty much the source line is going to be what you're going to analyze the most. Okay, so this is Doc 2. Our source line is Sybil Newell, British competitor in the 1908 Olympics held in Great Britain, where 2% of athletes were women. Newspaper, England, 1908.
No chance.
Not a chance. I mean, you don't get that? Okay, so here's the big deal here.
The editor can say
Okay, the newspaper thing, and that in 1908, pictures in newspapers are pretty much not there. I mean, like, that's still a new thing in 1908. Okay, so that picture could be staged only to sell newspapers. It could be, I mean, it could be that, yeah, she's the competitor, but they put her out there. There's nobody in the stands. We don't see anybody else around there. But they put that out there to sell newspapers and to get the actual publicity for the women. When you see the word newspaper, they're just as shady then as they are now. I mean, any news source has a slant to it. What are they doing here? What's the slant here? Is that they're using that picture to sell newspapers. So if you want to write staged right here, you know, I don't know, IDK, I don't know, but probably used to sell newspapers. Okay, let's go back up to that source line. What is this?
The date.
And what does it do?
Tells us the time of when this was taking place.
Okay, and so it's the time when I want you to know that this is the beginning
Of the
of women's movement.
Yep.
I'm sorry, beginning of women's movement. Also, I want you to write sports outfit.
Oh yeah, dress attire.
The ladies of the day are wearing the corsets, really small waists. I mean, the whole like 1900 garb, right? So she's not as heavily dressed as those ladies of the day are. So that is a sports outfit. What is the feature that we can group this into? Feature women in Olympics. Okay, again, we've got to watch out that we don't say that the Olympics caused the female movement. We've got to say that the females are in the Olympics because of the female movement, right? There's a difference, and that inverse literally could be one word. And you just got to watch that you're not flipping it over. All right. Okay, this is huge POV. Huge source line oozing. Okay, so let's look at that right now and focus on this document. Right here, the guy talking is British. Guy talking is British. He's a team official, not a competitor. And then 1936, that's pre-war. And the games were held in Germany in 1936. But what does this say?
20 years later.
It was 20 years later. So, written 20 years after fact.
So this is during the war.
Okay, so it's before the war. 1936 is
After.
and it was written after. So what is that telling you? Keep going with this right here is that this is very retrospective. It's very looking back. It's very much after the war. There's 20 years between these events, and the Nazis are going to fall, right? They're going to rise and fall, yes? Rise, cause war, and then be defeated. The POV here is that it's a British citizen against Nazis. That's against Nazi.
So could our like missing voice be like a document from a Nazi?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And this one just screams for that because, you know, the Nazis were probably, we just wanted to glorify our country. We wanted to ski hard. We wanted to, you know, like just have everything to glorify our country. And it probably looks completely innocent. Where these guys, this guy is saying that, look, the Nazis cheated. He was a British official for the games. He, you know, the teams bring their own officials with them to like monitor them, and to monitor what's going on around them. And so he's saying that, look, the Nazis cheated. They went out, the course was closed, and they went out anyways, and they practiced. So they had an unfair practice over us. Look how bad the Nazis were. All they cared about was, you know, their national pride.
So it's kind of making the Nazis look bad.
Absolutely. Additional document could be from the Nazis on what they wanted to achieve by going out practicing. If they knew that they were, I mean, it's their home course. So being out early is probably very normal for them, going out on the slopes early and practicing. They probably didn't think that they were cheating. Maybe they were out earlier before the course was closed. Do you know, that missing voice could explain why they were out earlier. The feature is political, and it's showing that your love for your country is going to play out in the Olympics. The nationalism, the pride for your country is going to be carried through the games. Isn't that what Doc 1 wanted? Yeah, absolutely. Doc 1 wanted that. So you could group Doc 1 with this document in a nationalism grouping and say that, look, Doc 1 just laid it out that founder wanted so badly for there to be no war and for there to be peace and have that nationalism play out on the field. This document backs up that idea that, you know, this is pre-World War I, or I'm so sorry, pre-World War II, and they're playing out their nationalistic feelings on the ski slopes. The source is oozing. Tell me what the source says. Go ahead, Zach.
He's American.
Okay, so he's American. What about being American? He's a competitor.
It's also 20 years after.
Yeah,
Okay, so again, he's 20 years after the fact. You know, go ahead and write 20 years after fact. And that it's retrospective. And that whole retrospective thing is, you know, 20 years ago, you guys haven't even been alive 20 years ago, but 20 years ago I graduated high school. 20 years ago.
What?
And so my view, I was really a bad student 20 years ago. But if you would have asked me 20 years when I was sitting in your seats and, you know, getting ready to graduate, I would have said, man, I rock as a student. Years ago, like my point of view, I'm like, man, I was really a sucky student, and I would have hated to have me in my class. You understand, as a teacher? So my point of view has changed in 20 years. The fact that he's a United States competitor have anything to do with this? USA what?
Hates the Soviet Union
Why?
because they were
There's a
war.
World War II, of course.
Cold War, maybe.
Cold War.
Because of the Cold War.
Yes.
And so the POV is oozing that he's the American, that he's the Democrat, that he is an absolute good guy. So we go like this, we go, good guy, bad guy. Okay? And that we're talking about the many pressures. I mean, it's not just the bad guy. We're calling him the enemy. So this is not just competitors. They're not just competitors, they are the enemy. We had to beat them. So what feature are we going to go with this one?
When you battle your enemy on the playing field. Kind of
Okay, so political and then nationalism, right?
Yeah.
Let's go through this and let's look at Doc 5. And let's take that apart. What do you have? Let's see, it's Rotoria Azuma, mayor of Tokyo and chairman of the committee that organized the 1964 games held in Japan in a magazine interview in 1972. So he's got 8 years after the fact. Today is 1972. Okay, and then get out from under defeated this right here, that whole thing, get out of the loser viewpoint. And so we're going to group this into political and economic. Because you can do it either way. You can talk about how Japan and their need to get out of that loser viewpoint, right? They're going to make those Olympics the best, right? So that's going to shape the Olympic Games because they want to show the world that they're not losers. Okay? So get out of the loser viewpoint. Show world not, darn it, not losers.
Can you? Oh my
Or
god.
bad.
Thanks.
So that's what they're out to do. It's going to shape those Olympic Games, that they're out to show the world that they're not the losers that got nuked. I'm sorry, atomic bomb. These games, that was the question, right? We have to tie this back to the question of not wanting to let the Olympics down here. They don't want to let the Olympics down. It's going to shape the games into being the best that they can. Don't write about the success that resulted from the games, to breaking stereotypes of being defeated country in World War II. It was that you don't want to write about the success, the money success that resulted from the games. You don't want to write about, I'm just going to write, or that the games caused the stereotypes. Okay, watch the inverse here, because that inverse right there of the games caused us to have money. The games caused the stereotypes. That's not what it's about. It's information guide provided to the members of the press, published by the Soviet Union's Olympic organizing community in 1980. So published by the Soviets. Huge POV oozing here. The fact that Moscow has been chosen to stage the 1980 Olympic Games is a result of the consistent and peaceful foreign policy pursued by the Soviet Union, which is a beacon of peace, democracy, and social progress. This honor is also an expression of the respect for the great Soviet achievements in physical education and sport. So look, it's this chosen to stage. I want you to look at that word choice right up here and go, word choice. They did not use the word host. That they have to stage these games.
Doesn't it like mean fake it kinda?
Fake it, right. And result of the consistent and peaceful foreign policy of the Soviet Union.
Yes,
Okay? This is height of Cold War. Talks about the great Soviet achievements in physical athletes and in the peace that they have. I need you to know that because of the Soviet involvement in a war against the Afghanistan Republic at this point, the United States boycotts 1980. We don't go to these games. The USA boycotts these games. I mean, the fact that they call themselves a beacon of peace and democracy.
And I like, how dare you?
Yeah. And so, look, the USA, if they were a peaceful and democratic nation, why would the most peaceful and democratic nation of the USA boycott it?
Because they're evil. Propaganda.
You've heard of the because it's the devil.
Who's living?
Propaganda. You got that right.
Propaganda BS.
What? Oh.
Why is it propaganda BS? Who published this?
The
Soviets.
Soviets.
They're basically
They're all
saying
for
they're
themselves.
amazing. Making themselves look good and self-indulgent.
They're making themselves look good. They've written this script. They're given this guide to the media. They said, this is what you need to know.
It's like biased in their sense.
It's completely slanted towards the
Well, would an
Soviets.
additional document be why the United States boycotted going?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the feature of this? How are we going to group it?
It'd be political and like
Propaganda BS.
it'd be like how the world views somebody, like nationalism, I guess.
Yeah, it's the love for their country. Look how good we are. Look how great we are. Look at how wonderful we are.
It's show off.
It is a show
Group and
off.
feature the same thing.
Say what?
Group and feature, are they the same thing?
You're grouping it to answer the question feature, yes. I'm so sorry. So,
Because we did feature a couple times, so he was just wondering.
I don't know what to talk about.
okay, now my question to you is, look back back at a document, what is this the complete opposite of? Yep, direct opposite of Doc 6. That's at Doc 4. So I'm going to go over here at Doc 6, and I'm going to write direct opposite of Doc 4. All right, let's go to Doc 7.
But would you group those two together? Because they're opposites. You would put them in different groups, wouldn't you?
But it's still the grouping talking about the feature of nationalism. Look at how nationalism shapes the Olympic Games. So here's Doc 4. The United States is nationalistic. They're very much proud of their country. They're getting rid of the enemy. They're beating the enemy.
Well, this kind of starts off with Doc 1 and how he says it's good for nationalism.
And it's good for nationalism, right? But hey, wait, the United States boycotts. Now that's outside information. Only the best kids are going to know that the United States boycotted the 1980 Olympics. We go to Doc 7. We're looking at this. It's Japan Economic Journal, newspaper editorial in Japan, 1988. Do a little thing over here and do watch for inverse. That you don't inverse it, that it's not, the question does not say the Olympics causes money. Okay? And so I want you to watch that because that's really a misinterpret of this doc. I mean, we really could go wrong if we went that way. And it's not that the Olympics causes money. That's not what this doc says. So, it is that if you are an industrial and economic power on a worldwide television audience, it's that if you are this power, that you're able to host the Olympics. And that you're able to show the world that you are this power. So let's see that how am I going to say this? Okay. So the question we have to ask is, why is there no industrial power in Korea in 1988? Global image promotes country. Global image promotes country through Olympics. Image promotes means that you promote your country through the Olympics. And that, look, Korea hosts this, we are economically available to host the Olympics. That we have enough money to build the venues, to have it, to do that. But what this is saying is that 9 corporations from around the world have selected as top sponsors, but there's not a South Korean one as a top sponsor. That's because they spent all their money getting everything ready, right? They're not going to be able to have this whole TV audience thing happen. What's the POV here? Japan versus Korean. This is in a Japan editorial. So it's definitely the Japanese looking down going, look, you should have had enough money to not only build the venues and host the games and have all that, but then you should have enough for advertising. You should have enough. I mean, you should have prepared for that. You should, but hey, You know, if it's the top 9 companies are Pepsi and Coke and you know, what else? FedEx, usually, what's the big one?
UPS, FedEx.
UPS.
Visa.
I mean, those are the big companies.
Visa,
So in
yeah.
1980. So just watch that it's not the Olympics that cause the money, that you have to have the money in order, you know, that's why is there no industrial power, and you know, that's Japan asking that question. Why is there no? Right there. And that this is global image, promotes country through the thing. So, but we're going to group this how? What's the feature that we're doing?
Economics.
Feature.
Oh, for the essay, do we have this with us to look back on?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not all
No, you don't have to memorize the 10 documents. You have that, that's why that pre-write, that's why doing this in that pre-write, take the time to do this all the way through it. Take the time on the back side of, you know, your green book is going to look like this, right? An exam, end of exam. You can write it out like this, and you can go group 1, group 2, and you know, go through it and do a blue sheet. You'll have done this blue sheet so many times, right? That you'll have that in your head, and you'll do it automatically. Okay, during that time. All right.
So how long do we have to do this? Like analyze
It's
it?
45 minutes.
Just to analyze it, not to
You get about 10 minutes to do that.
all the.
Where
all
we're
the
at, we're at an hour. Right. We're at an hour. Let's look at Doc 8. Hasiba Boulmerka, Algerian competitor in 1992 games held in Spain, where 29% of the athletes were women, in a newspaper article interview in 1995. So it's only 3 years after the fact. Okay, and that, go ahead, Emma, read that for me, loud and clear.
Okay. My victories gave me confidence, and they gave confidence to my country. I represent my country and all the women in my country who aspire to be athletes. Nothing will deter me from that mission. For every critic denouncing my running in shorts, there are friends and family who urge me to continue. I have a tremendous spirit to run and win. A lot of women in my country are capable of becoming athletes, but psychologically, they don't think so. They have to become stronger in the mind, not just the body.
Tell me about Algeria. What do you know about it?
To African.
Okay, so this is North African country. Anything you know about this woman?
Wasn't she like the first woman to win a gold medal in the track and field?
Yeah, she's a Muslim.
Is Algeria a Muslim country?
Yes.
How do you know that on a test, like who they are?
I would hope that you know where that is, that's in Africa. We've already talked about the spread of Islam from the top of North Africa through the trade routes to sub-Saharan Africa. The fact that she says that she has critics denouncing me running in shorts gives you a clue too about the whole Muslim thing, because if she was a Muslim, she'd have a hijab on, that she'd be covered from head to toe. But how can an athlete run in that?
You can't.
So I want you to go like this: Doc 2, Doc 8. Doc 2, again, newspaper is one of our thing. What did newspaper say in Doc 2? How many women were there?
2%.
And how many women for this one?
29%.
Okay, what was the year?
1908. This is 1992. Oh, 5.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's 1992 for the games, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then,
Shorts.
and she still had critics, though, in 1992 about her shorts. And that's because of the Muslim, she should be in full hijab, and that she should only have
So
her
if she wasn't
whole...
Muslim.
Right, if she wasn't a Muslim, this wouldn't be an issue. She
Yeah.
wouldn't have critics.
Yeah.
And that's why she has critics. Do you see that? Did
Is
you
it-
get so influence over time? That there's been a shift. That look, in 1908, there were 2% women. Look at the change that we have so far. That's a pretty big change. Are we equal? Heck no. If it's 70-30, women are still not fully represented in 1992. What is she talking about here? What's the summary of this doc?
How she never gave up, pretty much.
Right. So, but it's a glory for a
Pride.
country, right?
Well,
National
it's a
anthem.
glory for women almost because, or she wants them to be, because she says that they can become athletes, but not physically, not psychologically.
You
So-
just can't give up. You can't listen to the critics. You have to do what you want to do.
Right. And it's glory for country and women. And glory for country and women in this country that's Muslim, right?
She might be inferring it also to like all of women, but most of them because they're the ones with the critics.
Right? Muslims, even if you're Muslim, you can still have women as athletes. How are we going to group this? The feature is what?
Women's rights.
How come
Yeah.
I can't spell that today? Feature.
Women's rights.
We're going to do women's rights.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we could group that with Doc 2
Yep.
as women's rights. Go to Doc 9. Statistics, fees paid to the International Olympic Committee for international TV and radio broadcasting rights. In 1980, these are the fees, right? This is the year of the games, and then this is the million of US dollars. So in Moscow, the fees paid to the International Olympic Committee. 1988 for Seoul, it was up to 400,000. 1996 in Atlanta, it was just over 1 million. And then in 2000, it was up over 1 million.
1.2 million.
Yeah, it was up there. And so this is fees paid.
That's like 1.3 billion. 'Cause it's a
Billion?
It says millions of United States
Oh
dollars.
yeah, okay, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
You're
better.
right, so that's going up to billion. Okay. So we're selling broadcast rights. Sorry. Who gets to watch? It's not just about advertising.
Couldn't it have been more money though, because like the price on like money value has changed? Like in 1980, it wasn't as like,
Yeah, you could say that.
It wouldn't change that much, but
no, not.
It wouldn't change that much. I mean, I think that it's probably taking in consideration. Let's just assume that. I want you to know that this is fees paid in anticipation of showing what? Absolutely. It's their national pride. They're showing, it's the fees paid in anticipation. This is paid to the International Olympics to, like, who gets to watch these? So in 1980 in Moscow, these fees, why would there be such a low showing in Moscow? And it's the Committee for International TV and Radio Broadcast Right. It's just like who gets to watch these games. Why would it be so low in 1980? You want to know, here's what's missing.
This is only Americans.
Missing. How many countries are competing how many countries are paying to broadcast. Like in Moscow, how many countries were competing? Versus in Sydney, Australia, how many countries are competing? A lot more in 2000 versus 1980 because there were people that boycotted the 1980 games. And then in 2000, there's no conflict. This is peacetime, right? So there's peace now, so there's more countries going. There's more athletes involved. And so it's bringing attention to the country, and again, this is going to boost economics. We're going to group this as the future of economics. Can't leave this out. I mean, this is actually asking for statistics, but you know, the adduct that would make this stronger, I mean, the adduct that would make this stronger, it's from the International Olympic Committee statistics. And so there's a huge disparity between those two stats. It's because there's stuff left out. There's, you know, how many countries are competing versus how many countries are paying to broadcast. There's more technology, right? There's more people that have televisions that are going to watch this, right? So their fees are going to be higher because there's more TVs to watch. In 1984, weren't the Olympics in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Where the Soviets boycotted us?
They
Yeah,
boycotted us because we boycotted them 4 years
Right.
before.
They boycotted us because we boycotted them in 1980. 1984, get your phone out. Tell me what it is. Google 1984 Olympics. It was in Los Angeles, and the Soviets didn't come to us. But they come to Atlanta in 1996. Why? Because the Cold War's over, yes? Okay, we know that. Here's our boy. He's the internet edition of the English language Pakistani newspaper Dawn in Pakistan 2002. The rise and fall of Pakistan's men's field hockey team in the 2000 Olympics reflects our social values, which have shrunk from that of national pride to self-promotion. After partition from India in 1947, people were willing to sacrifice anything for the newborn country. Working tirelessly for our team, finished second to its arch rivals from India in the 1956 Olympics and won its first gold medal in 1960. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? However, the current national team is clueless and has tarnished the country's names. Unless changes are made, this era will be known as the darkest period in Pakistan's sports history.
It's depressing.
Wow, what happened is what I want to know.
That's what,
You know,
they
like,
don't tell
what?
you.
Something obviously happened between them.
Pakistan and
Partition.
India and the Olympics in 2000.
Alright, so something in 2000 Olympics, something happened in 2000 Olympics. I don't even know what happened, but what he's asking for is for...
Nobody likes him because of 9/11.
This is before 9/11.
It's 2002.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
but he's
2000
looking back at the
Olympics.
2000 Olympics, right? And he's saying that it reflects our national pride. This right here,
Yeah, but even if that, it's still his edit. It's still his, you know, his edition from 2002. So he's gonna put his opinions in that editorial or whatever
Yeah.
he's writing of
Yeah.
anything. No matter if he's talking about the 1960 Olympics or whatever, it's still the date at which he wrote it is after 9/11.
Which is after 9/11.
okay, so date is after 9/11/01, okay? It's that whole Pakistani that it sounds like he's embarrassed about lack of unity. I'm sorry. Embarrassed about lack of unity. He says that they're clueless, they've tarnished our country's names, changes need to be made, this era will be known as the darkest period in Pakistan's sports history. He wants there to be, you know, bring back glory and gold to country. It would be the feature. Very nice, Ashley. Political nationalism.
So pretty much everything runs around the country's pride.
Always.
But then tie that back to Doc 1. If you tie that back to Doc 1, isn't that exactly what the founder of the modern Olympics wanted you to do? Absolutely. It all goes back to that sense of pride for your nation,
That's the reason
that nationalism. This is what you're doing. You want that
Pride.
glory